Hey guys, Random Tree here. Sorry for the terrible, what's it called? Film? I'm just mostly going to be doing audio, and I'm hoping to actually do a little thing where I draw a picture over this voiced audio, so we'll see what happens. And also, you probably noticed I'm posting 2 videos today. That's just because of one's primarily for adults, like 16 on up, so I still wanted something for everyone else who's subscribed who isn't 18 on up, so that's what that's about. Anyways, I'm gonna get back to reading this. Hopefully you guys can at least decipher the words if I can't read them correctly. Right, let's get to this. The next afternoon, Jonah told me to meet him at his mom's beauty salon. The shop is called Joel Pickett's Lube and Dye. Because it happens to be the only salon offering beauty services and minor car repairs in the entire town of Midnight Gulch, and possibly the whole world, Jonah said this shop came about because his mom, Joel, had 2 great passions in life: tinkering with carburetors and coloring people's hair. So Joel signed up for beauty school on the same day she signed up for mechanic school. When she moved back to Midnight Gulch a few years ago, she decided to blend her 2 passions. Now every mechanic Joel hires has to be well versed in rotaries and acrylic nails, and every stylist at the Lube and Dye, I am reading that right? It's Lube. I hope I'm reading that right because I don't really know. Anyways, the Lube and Dye knows how to change oil and cut a perfect mid-length bob. I didn't need a perfect mid-length bob or an oil change, but I certainly had business to attend to at the Joel's Lube and Dye. Bad business, awful business. My business, I had to tell Jonah that the duel couldn't happen. Somewhere way back in my twisty-turny family tree, I was related to a couple of dueling, feuding magicians who wrecked a whole town and cursed my family in the process. It didn't matter what splendidly beetle plan Jonah cooked up. Mama was cursed to wander. I was cursed to wander. I dreaded the way Jonah's eyes would flicker from neon happy green to mossy sad, all because of what I had to tell him. His know-how had never failed until me. I was broken up over it too. I didn't want to leave the only place I've ever felt at home, but there was no reason I should go through with the duel, especially after Cleo's Stormtail had messed it up no matter what. I'd messed it up no matter what. We would leave town no matter what. I free wrote about my dilemma in the blue book. Reasons the duel is done. Because I still haven't written any poems worth dueling with. Because there's an itty-bitty bit of threadbare in me somewhere, which means I'm cursed to fail at everything I try. Because I would much rather fail at something that doesn't happen in front of a room full of people, where I'll most likely refer to artists as fartists and various other stupidities. Florentine was right. I did have magic in my veins, but it was the wrong kind of magic. My family magic was way worse than whatever she was packing along in her traveling bag. Worst of all, I didn't need to collect words or practice for the duel anymore, so Jonah wouldn't have any reason to hang out with me. As I shuffled my way toward the Lube and Dye, I imagined going through with the duel, standing in front of the entire school, hoping the right words would work their way out. They wouldn't though. And even though I was only at the duel, in my imagination, my hands trembled the same as if it were real. The skin above my lip got sweaty, and the back of my head started to itch. Itchy, twitchy, puckish. That's an awful way to be remembered. It was all for the best, really. As long as I didn't duel, I wouldn't disappoint Jonah or embarrass myself. I'll tell him quick, I said to Biscuit, who trotted along beside me, wagging her tail. It'll be like ripping off a Band-Aid. Then I let out a sigh. I dragged my sneakers slower across the sidewalk. You think he'll still be my friend, even if I don't compete? I know Biscuit wouldn't answer for real, but she stayed close beside me. Sometimes you don't need words to feel better. You just need the nearness of your dog or your best friend. Biscuit and I stood outside the window of Jules' Lube and Die for a while, watching all the chatter and commotion happening inside. I could see Jonah sitting in the back of the room. He was polishing an elderly lady's nails. Biscuit sat down and pressed her paw against my shoe. I know he'll be sad, I said, but I have to tell him today. Wait here, okay? Biscuit lay down on the sidewalk, resting her fuzzy head on her paws. The door jingled as I pulled it open. Jonah smiled at me from the corner of the room as I made my way toward him. Words fell down in such thick certains I thought I might have to push them back just to get by. I never expected so many words in this place. In Jules' Lube and Die, words were crashing into each other like bumper cars, and they were exploding up above me like fireworks. Some words looked extra lovely, though. Hope was lipstick red, reflecting back at me from the mirror over Jules' station. On that same mirror, Jewel had taped a yellow ribbon and a picture of a handsome soldier, Jonah's dad. He looked brave and strong. Even in a picture, his eyes were full of love and sorrow. I wished he could climb out of the picture and see Hope as close to him right there beside him. Hope didn't fade when I walked past Joel's station. Hope doesn't fizzle or flicker or burn out. Hope isn't the same as other words. Hope holds steady. I pulled the pen from the pocket of my jeans and wrote Hope on the inside of my wrist. I'd put it in the blue book later. For now, I wanted it as close to me as I could have it. Joel Pickett was nodding her head while she trimmed Elvis Phillips' hair. He tapped his foot to the music on the radio, antsy for his haircut to end so he could get back to dancing. Most of the words above the rest of the clients were all people names. Divinity Lawson, Burl Honeycutt, Cleopatra Harness, Holly Harness. My mama's name was fading, floating up slowly towards the speckled ceiling. I wondered which of those clients had been thinking about her. I wonder if they'd said something kind or something sorrowful. Jonah waved me over to the corner table where he was sitting. Working beside Jonah was a rotund R-O-T-U-N-D. I don't know what that spells, but it looks like rotund? I don't know. Man with a shiny black head. He wore sparkly diamond earrings and had muscles in his arms the size of cantaloupes. The man had tattoos from his wrist to his shoulders, bright pictures of dragons and angels with wings of fire. This is Big Bruce, Jonah nodded toward his coworker. He used to do detail work out in the shop, but he missed the personal interaction with the clients. Gets lonesome dealing with motors all day long, growled Big Bruce. He was gently holding Ponder Willer's hand, painting little yellow flowers onto her nails. We sure get lonesome without you in here, Ponder batted her eyelashes. Huh? Big Bruce huffed, but his ear studs seemed to sparkle extra brightly at her compliment. Jonah picked up a bobby pin and used the tip to add tiny blue polka dots to the freshly painted nails of the old lady in front of him. Pull up a chair, Felicity, Jonah said. I wanted you to meet my dear friend Rosie Walker. Miss Walker, this is my best friend Felicity Pickle. Rosie Walker's milky blue eyes met mine. She smiled and said, You doing okay, child? She said. Yes, ma'am. Even though that was a lie, I wasn't okay at all. I was plump awful because of what I had to tell Jonah. I didn't want to tell him in front of Rosie Walker, though. I figured I could at least wait until he was finished doing nails to break his heart. Sit here beside me, Felicity, said Rosie. Her voice was a pretty old rasp, like the rush of pages in an old dusty book. I do love your name, Felicity. It sounds so lovely to say, doesn't it? Like a secret. Like your name. I like your name too, I said, and I also like her dress because it was as bright red as a summer tomato. Rosie's skin was pale, brittle looking as a piece of crinkled paper. Her white hair was fuzzed out and fluffed high up on her head. She had a red flower pinned tightly in her nest of white hair. I like that too, and when she crossed one leg over the other, I saw her cowboy boots. They were scruffed up brown and embroidered with red roses. I crazy like those cowboy boots. Jonah must have noticed me checking out Rosie's fancy boots because he said Rosie Walker is a famous country music singer. I was a singer, Rosie corrected. I lived in Nashville for a time. I wasn't Rosie Walker out there, though. I was Rumblin' Rose McGee. I sang songs I wrote myself, and people came from 100 miles away just to hear my voice. My uncle is a musician, I said. His name is Booney Harness, and he plays in Nashville. He had a stage name, too. Booney Taylor, do you know him? Been years since I've been to Nashville, honey, said Rosie Walker. Even though she smiled at me, I could hear the sadness crackling in her voice. I saw words shimmering against the fabric of her dress, inching up her sleeves as slowly as silkworms. Saturday song, lonesome sky, rebel scandal, summer rain. Jonah smiled proudly and said, Miss Walker played at the Grand Ole Opry. She sang on stage with Minnie Pearl. I'm a blessed woman, I say. Every one of my dreams come true, Rosie Walker stated. I'm proof that it's never too late to take hold of a dream. I thought I was too old to set out for Nashville and be a singer. I thought nobody'd listen to me since I wasn't a young flouncy little spring chicken, and I always thought my songs were just for me, to keep me busy, to keep my mind moving. But God bless the beetle. Rosie didn't look at Jonah. I glanced his way, but he stayed focused on his polka dot project. She didn't know the beetle was sitting right across from her. What'd the beetle do for you? I asked. 20 years ago, the beetle left me a guitar and a $100 bill on the front porch of my house, said Rosie. There was a red ribbon tied around the guitar and slid in underneath the ribbon was a note with very specific instructions. That's a special guitar the beetle left me, you see. Rosie leaned over and whispered to me. The beetle said my guitar originally belonged to one of the brothers Threadbare. Of course, I'd figured that out already, but the shine in Rosie's eyes was so pretty when she told me that I pretended to be surprised all over again. The note told me that every time I played that guitar, I had to lead off with the same song. I could play anything I wanted after that, but I had to start with the same tune. It's an old mountain song, the very same when the brothers Threadbare started their show with. I know the tune, of course. Everybody in the mountains knows that tune. A sad smile stretched across her face. Not a single note of music could come out of that guitar unless I started my set with that song. If I sang Fire and Thunder Ladies first, then everything else I played sounded lovely, otherworldly even. That's magic if I ever heard it. Rosie inspected her polka dot nails and thanked Jonah for his hard work. I was 57 years old when I set out for Nashville. I embroidered red roses on my favorite pair of cowboy boots. I put new strings on that magical guitar and I lit out. I played on the sidewalks of Nashville for a time. That's the only place I could play. I played for pennies and day-old coffee. I played through the storms and through the rain. Some people didn't listen at all. Some people listened and told me I was no good. But I've always had a heap of determination caught up in me. So I kept on playing, and I played my way all the way to the stage at the Ryman. What's a Ryman? I whispered, because the way she'd said the word made it sound like some dreamy fog-covered castle. A Ryman is a place where people go to play music and to hear music. Before it was a music hall, it used to be a church. The pews are all still there. That building's got stained glass windows and beer-stained floors. There are thousands of prayers and songs caught in the bones of the walls. You can feel them, the prayers, the music, all around you whenever you sit down in that place. Then why'd you stop going there? Yeah, Rosie, Big Bruce sniffed. His eyes were sparkling with tears. Why'd you stop playing? I know when it's time to bow out, Rosie said sadly, but I'll tell y'all this. The Ryman is scared, and the Ryman is wild. And when you find a place in this world, a place that is wild and scared, you should treasure it. I wonder if Uncle Booney has played at the Ryman, I asked. Rosie nodded. I'm sure he wants to. Anybody who sings a note or strums a string wants to play there. Felicity is a storyteller, Miss Rosie, Jonah said. She sees words hovering in the air and shining over people's heads and stuff. She collects ones she loves the most. That's how she's going to win the duel. My heart flopped down into my stomach again. Is that right, Felicity? Rosie asked. I collect words, I said, but I'm not much at making them into anything. Word collecting is a special gift, said Rosie. And a curse, I barely sighed. Rosie chuckled. Jonah, I like Felicity. She seems unique. Felicity is enchanting, Jonah said, and he said it as though the word had been on the tip of his tongue, ready to break loose and be said for weeks. Enchanting, the word perched on Jonah's shoulder like a tiny silver songbird. I leaned over and wrote enchanting on my shoe in big bubble letters. I never wanted to forget my songbird word. I never wanted to forget it as it was mine. Plump, pretty, poet, enchanting. Those were all words Jonah'd given to me because he believed they were true. He believed I was those things, and I was minutes away from telling him that he'd believed for nothing. Rosa turned toward Jonah. I'm not wearing my glasses. Is Felicity as cute as she sounds? Felicity has gray eyes, Jonah said. They almost look silver sometimes, the same color the river turns when a big rain comes through and it's about to overflow. She has sad eyes, but she's not as a sad girl, not always. Jonah finally looked up at me, maybe a little bit today, though. His forehead wrinkled when he concentrated on my face. Why are you sad today, Felicity? Jonah, I had to do it now. It was pure torture to put it off any longer. I came to tell you, but I didn't get to tell him a thing because suddenly the doorbell clanged and Oliver Weatherly shouted, "Hey-o," from the doorway. He wore overalls, a white t-shirt, and a big smile. He held a large red collar in his hands. Oliver hoisted the collar above his head like it was full of treasures and said, "Free ice cream for everybody." Woo! Ponder Waller raised her hands in the air. "Her nails are still wet," Big Bruce hollered at her. "Your nails are still wet," Big Bruce hollered at her. But she didn't hear him because the folks getting their hair done and the people out in the shop all started hollering out their favorite flavors. Virgil's Get Out My Face Fudge Ripple, Bobby's Buttered Avocado, Susie's White Chocolate Cherry Walnut, Aunt Ruth's Pumpkin Sampler. "I could sure use a blackberry sunrise," said Rosie, walking so soft. Walker, said Rosie Walker, so softly I didn't know if anybody besides me had heard. I'm in a remembering way. "I'll get it for you," Jonah said. He wheeled away, and I stood to follow him, but Rosie Walker caught my wrist with her bony hands. "Felicity, darling," she barreled. "You know what helped me figure out how to put my words together? Music. Music gets my words where they need to go. So you keep catching them words you hear, pluck them out of the wind, string them together like the finest set of pearls, line them up on paper, and if it hurts too much to say them, then you sing them, or whisper them, or write them into a story. But don't waste them. Your words matter more than you know. You hear?" I nodded sadly. "I'll try. That's all you have to do." Rosie patted my arm. "The rest takes care of itself." Joel Pickett walked to the front of the shop and stared down into the wondrous abyss of Oliver's collar. "What's the occasion, Weatherly? And what are you doing here so early? Your appointment ain't till 4. I liked Joel Pickle's voice because it sounded like it had a laugh caught up inside it. I could tell that some of Jonah's weirdly wonderful had come straight from his mother. She smiled the same way Jonah smiled, and her hair was blonde and prickly like his. "No occasion," Oliver said. "I figured I'd scoot in early, share some ice cream, and shoot the breeze." "All he's good for is shooting the breeze," said an old man in a plaid shirt and dirt-stained blue jeans. He tried to sound tough, but a kind smile stretched across his face. "I never met a man that told more tall tales in all my life. There's more truth in my tall tales than your weather reports, Virgil," Oliver said as he tossed the old man a carton of ice cream. They both laughed. If there's one thing I dearly love, it's a chorus of that kind of laughter, of laughing. Happy laughing. It's as fine as any symphony. Survivor, safe harbor, sweetheart, anchor. Those were Virgil's words. They clung to his arms, and I could tell by his strong shoulders and bold words, and by the wrinkle in his eye, that he was a man who'd been barely loved. Virgil scratched the scruff on his jaw. "You might as well settle in, Weatherly. Spin a a few of those tales since you're here." Oliver plopped down underneath one of the hair dryers and propped his boots up on the footrest. "Any requests?" "Tell us about sweet L.D. May," said Big Bruce. "Tell us about the duel," hollered Harriet Bond, Jules' lead mechanic, through the window connecting the salon to the body shop. She waved to Oliver from underneath the hood of an old Ford truck. "That duel, Miss Lawson's cooking ups got everybody talking about the Brothers Threadbare again. The last thing I want to hear more about was the duel. There was another story I wanted to know about. Tell us what about the witch of Midnight Gulch," I said. Even though I said it quick and quiet, you'd think I'd shouted. The room fell silent. Folks cracked around in their seats to stare at me. Elvis Phillips trapped an anxious rhythm against the swivel chair. "What witch?" he asked. "I've never heard anything about any witch." "Everybody hush." Jewel raised her voice over the chorus of mumbles and grumbles. "Let Oliver tell the story." The dark clouds that had been slinking in and out of the mountains ever since I got to town rumbled low across the sky like a warning. Oliver laced his fingers together over the paunch of his belly. He sighed, as if he'd been expecting me to ask that very thing. He leaned back in his seat and began. "All right then." And I leaned in close and prepared my heart for a storm of a story. Well, that's it. The end of chapter 16. Next chapter is 17. And we'll get back at it whenever we do. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.